fascinating for me is this, I don't even have a concrete name for it, but it's something I observe actually with anyone going to travel. So when you go travel and then you go back to your old environment and you realize that, or at least I realized that nothing has changed. I remember when coming back from that 1 year backpacking Southeast Asia and coming back and meet my best friend from my childhood friend. And I was like, hey, what did you do this year? And he literally said, I was just waiting for you to come back. And I was so shocked by that response because it literally ended our relationship. Because I was like, oh, wow, that means now I am bringing every impulse to the table and you have nothing to offer because you were just in a waiting position. And that reality was really, really strong of like, wow, I'm back, but I have totally changed. And that change cannot really be grasped by someone who has not experienced change in the same time. Because I also met people that had like tragic incidences in their family, for example, and I could go really deep with them after traveling because they had a change experience and I had a change experience, and our like where it came together was the change experience. That's what we could talk about. And beside that, if people didn't have the change experience, they just continued. It was really difficult to interact, really.
Connect.
There was nothing to talk about.
Right.
It was just the same old, you know? I'm still watching Dragon Ball Z. It's like, wow, all right. If that brings you joy, cool. But it's like that time is over. I've done that. I finished, like whatever. I'm not into it anymore. I've changed.
Right. And yeah, like especially when it comes to travel and I think there's different layers to travel as well. I remember when I was 16 and we went on a cruise and I got to experience my first experience of Costa Rica, Belize, and Panama, but it was within that confines of a cruise. And so everything was similar to States, but you know, just in a different environment. But when you actually go and experience the culture a little bit and like get that realization of like, oh wait, life is lived differently elsewhere, right? What I understand as or what I've been taught is the way of life isn't true everywhere. There are different ways of being, and having that experience and, you know, actually living with like, no, there's completely alternatives, like here in Honduras. And I think I brought this up before, but like what's going on in the world isn't happening here. And yeah, I remember like hearing like Honduras is really dangerous, right? You know, oh my gosh, the crime is overwhelming. But from actually coming here and living in the towns, and I've lived in 4 different towns, everyone's super nice. Everyone I've come across is like super nice. They're very inviting and like they're curious and they want to learn. And it's like, no, it's completely different from what I was told. And it's, you know, very chill, very laid back, very comfortable. Like they have their own issues, of course, but in contrast to what I remember from the United States and like my own family situation, that was a whole nother revelation of like how different families interact and how different cultures treat the importance of families, and seeing that dichotomy within, well, to say the somewhat destruction of the family unit within the United States, possibly purposely slow. And like here, no, it's like, oh no, they have this connection, this they help one another though, you know. Because in the United States and perhaps in Europe as well, it's like once you're 18, like you should find your own place, right? You're more pushed off out of the nest, which has its own benefits and things. But it's like here, no, it's like, no, you know, we're a family unit. Now you're making money. We're making money. We can build our home. We have land and they have all these things, and they work together as a family unit to create the best that they can, sometimes out of necessity. But at the same time, like, you know, family businesses grow just because the family sticks together and they're not pushed out of the nest. And just to experience these different ways of being and these different ways of approaching life is opens you up to, well, wait, so what have I been conditioned to understand of life? What have I been programmed to, or however you want to look at it? And it's like, no, there's infinite different ways to approach life. And being exposed to that through travel, I think, is very beneficial. Recommended for everybody to, if you can.
Right. Yeah. For me, my biggest like travel lesson, beside how little I need, was how little, like, for example, I was in Indonesia. I spoke maybe 20 words. You know, I was able to say hello and goodbye and thank you, and like the basics I learned to count to 10, whatever. I realized when I would go to a market and I would buy something and I didn't have the words, I could always make myself understood by the other person. There would be like an old lady, and I would just with pointing at fingers and just making the communication work. It always works. There's like a language we all mankind speaks, no matter the culture, no matter where you're from, no matter your education or whatever. You understand, like it's just obvious, common sense, basically. And for me, that was such an important lesson, to have faith in that wherever I am, wherever I go, I will be able to communicate with other human beings. That gave me a huge push into self-sustainability, because before I was always like, oh, what, you know, if I stranded in Indonesia now, how am I gonna survive? It's always possible, man. It's always possible.